Call to order the Joint Green Efforts Committee meeting for January 3rd, 2023. Wow. Let's do the, let's see if there's anybody on for public comment. Garrett, do we have anybody in the public at all?
I don't see anyone. So I think you're all set.
Okay. All right. We don't have any presentations tonight. So we'll jump into the minutes. Does everybody have a chance to breeze through them? If not, I'll give it a second here. Okay, and when someone feels ready, you can entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes from the November 1st, 2022 Green Efforts Committee meeting.
Perfect. Is there a second? Stacy, perfect. All right. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. All right. Jumping into public education goals. So anti-idling. I know there was some posters. Yeah, perfect. You want to bring those up? And Kate, if you want to, I know you sent an email earlier today.
Yeah.
Want to jump right into it?
Sure. I'll just give you some explanation behind this. So Tara Vasquez from Westwoods wasn't happy with kind of the finished product that the kids, they had done some revisions on their posters, but there was still a lot of pencil lines and whatnot. And the two of us tried to erase them off of these papers. It was impossible. So she approached the high school. And someone from the high school, and I don't have the name right now, but I can get that to you, worked with a student and they really buffed these up. And in some cases, they actually changed some of the lettering. As you can see, it doesn't look like a child's handwriting. This was a decision made by Tara and also the education, the people in the education department. I personally liked the look of the small child hand, but this is where they landed and they felt most comfortable with as far as making a sign out of it and having it on school property. So here they are. They were just finished. And so what she's asking is could they make multiple of these signs and then put a few different ones at each site as opposed to just one of the options, which there are 8 of them at each school, having say, 3 of the signs, or I mean, she didn't have really a number, but when she was working with, gosh darn, sorry, people, I can't remember, Kim, someone from the
highway,
from the Board of Ed.
Kim Wynn.
Kim Wynn.
Yes, thank you, Kim Wynn. That Kim had suggested that we put multiple signs at each of the schools in different locations along the pickup path. And I asked her, well, how many are we talking about? And she hasn't responded to that. So I'm hoping we're going to be able to talk this week to get some more clarity before, I get a number to reproduce these. I had a number back at the beginning before she wanted to do all of this, but that's null and void at this point. So I'll have to go back to this person that I was working with. And, once I know how many we're making and then, are going to be erected.
Now Kate, you're at, or Ms. Vasquez is asking about having more signs. I know we had the deep ones installed at the school. That was in the minutes from November. She's asking for additional locations.
So the deep signs were just really for the loading docks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right about that, right, Sam? I know you're on.
Yeah. So we don't have a dock at every building, but anywhere where the trucks pull up to unload, we install them either on a building or on a post. Yes.
So these are for where the students' families are coming and sitting and idling. So to the parking lot or, the drive up to pick up or whatever. That's what these are for. These are a separate thing. And Kim Wynn felt like, okay, not just one, because, people are, stacked back. So. I don't know, I guess thoughts on that, comments, concerns?
I understand. I mean, some of those pickup drop-off lines get very long.
Mhm.
So if you're at the, and it wouldn't surprise me either if cars at the back are more likely to leave their engine on because they know they're going to move forward eventually.
Mhm.
In terms of maybe, I don't know, maybe a school like West District, it's not where it's a smaller line. Maybe it's one sign, but the Westwoods, I don't know how long Westwoods is these days. But maybe it's kind of looking at maybe the schools, maybe IAR, Westwoods, and the high school have multiple because there's because it's everyone in town instead of the elementary schools where it's a much smaller population.
Yeah, logistically, obviously West District, you could turn in. IAR's got a lot of internal area to drive, but like, I know my kids at Union, everything's a public road there. So I don't know what kind of logistics we have to deal with the highway department or with Russ and Public Works, just to even get that approved. Maybe Garrett, you can ask Russ about, interproperty versus roadways to see what would be. And to me, like when you said some of those lines could be long, I like to say they're more obnoxious than anything. And I've only had to do it a few times. I think I'm scarred. Yeah, some of them seem like they queue up better than others. I know Union's a free for all. Everybody comes from different angles, and so some thought would have to go into where these can actually be placed, and that may more dictate the number of signs. I have a question, and I know Patty, you may be able to answer this, but when we were talking about the littering on the road and the number of signs, and sometimes it makes it worse. Do you think by having one sign where the kids go, or right before where the kids get dropped off, because usually like parents will queue 3-4 cars, maybe 5, but anybody after that doesn't let their kid off because they want to drop them off pretty much right at it because of instruments and whatever. So maybe it's the idling before that queue of 5 where they're not trying to shove their kid out the door and grab the stuff. And if we put too many, does that work against us by any means?
I think it's probably more critical for pickup than for drop off because parents show, at least in my experience, my high schooler now drives herself. So I don't have to do this anymore. But in my recollection is parents will show up anywhere from 5 minutes to even 30, 35 minutes early. And I know I have been known to show up incredibly early if I had a conference call that I had to hop on and I could take the call from the parking lot in the handful of schools where we have self-service. I think to some extent, this works a little differently from the littering signs because this is in some ways, especially given that these signs are made by the kids, it's almost a public shaming. There's that sign telling you what to do. And I honestly think some parents just don't remember. So I don't know how many of that some is truly don't remember, but I would assume that there's some portion.
Maybe
I'll agree. It's probably more than 35 minutes at a lot of places. Parents are queuing up quite a bit early, and that's probably the biggest culprit is the ones that are showing up an hour early and then just sitting there and waiting. So having these signs towards the front of parent pickup seems to me would make the most sense. I don't know how much more difference it'll make to have them scattered throughout the line.
Would it make sense to have maybe 2 for I don't know how long any of these lines are anymore, but if there's, one sign near the beginning and another one, I don't know even how the cars queue up, but another one 5 to 10 car lengths back, maybe 5 to 7 car lengths back. I don't know how many parents show up early and,
So maybe Kim or someone else from the school district can give us a little bit of insight on the queuing. I know that I have kids in only 2 of the 6, so I basically don't know the other 4, but they can give us a little bit better idea of where they're coming from. And then with that, maybe Russ can give his input on if it can be done. So Garrett, if you could dig into those two questions, I think we could have a better idea of the number of signs. I know we don't want to just throw them every 10 feet up the road.
Right, I think, I mean, so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, just because I didn't grow up in Farmington. Union School is the only one that is on the road, right? Everyone else has a parking lot, if I remember correctly. 'Cause I can't think of anything that Union School is like right on the road, and I know that's where the parent pickup is.
Right.
The only thing with that, I'll have to check the plans for 19 Perry Street. Because I remember there being something in there, but they had the developer will have to expand the parking lot, I think, because they're taking away space for parent pickup. I'll have to double check that.
That won't be done for a while anyways, because they're
Right, but if we,
So-
you know, we're not gonna put, I mean, it's probably just attaching it to an existing sign, but you know, if we're gonna put up new signs, we want to make sure that they're not gonna be in the way or no longer serve a function afterwards.
That's a staff lot anyway, so that wouldn't affect the parent pickup at Union.
All right, never mind. Forget I say.
No, it's okay. But the other thought I have is that I could reach out to Tara, get what her thoughts are for the multiple, and then the best way to figure out about that would be to work through the principles on it. So I
Okay.
could see if somebody could put it on the next pathways meeting or something, when the admins get together, when the principals get together, and they can discuss individual building needs for multiple signs.
We'd also briefly mentioned, or I'd brought up other areas where there are school activities, such as the boathouse when they're picking up kids for crew. So I don't know if we still want to think about putting a sign there.
Yeah, that was the other thing that we were talking about, Tara and I, about other places in town that might be appropriate for this, you know, aside from the schools and town hall. So the boatlet, there's people, they're sitting in their cars.
Yeah, when the parents pick up their students from who row for crew, and what the crew team is 100+ students, I think. I've
Wow.
never had a
Right.
kid who rows. And I have heard that the parents just sit there with their engines on, waiting. And of course, too, oftentimes crews when it's hot out, so they want their air conditioning running.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can back up the crew thing. I have a daughter, at least when it gets warm and she can't ride her bike back. Hey, when it gets dark early, I mean, but yeah, they park in that dirt lot as you come around the corner. And they sit there for 20-30 minutes because it's the same story of you show up on time, but then they don't get out on time. So a lot of times that's what happens. So yeah, there's their crew, I'm sure, from some of the sporting events for the high school, and they take buses out of town, things like that. But that should be fairly similar in the pickup. So, all right, let's Sam, if you can kind of work that pathways meeting angle, and then let's talk to Russ if there's any issues on the roadside, and then maybe we could, throw a map together that kind of shows a couple of locations.
Right, and I'll talk to him about, I'm assuming the boathouse wouldn't be a problem for him.
What
but
about
there's
what about the ball fields? Like that one in Wawanasa. I'm not sure I'm saying the name of that street right. Wawanasa.
Wanawasa.
Yeah.
As
Wanawasa,
I think.
and Wowasa.
Wowasa.
There's two of them, yeah.
There we go.
We're gonna start a petition to make a smaller sign for those street names.
I mean, we could, but I think the lots are a little small, and I don't think it'll be parents.
Hmm.
I think for like Little League, you want to see your kid playing. You're not going to sit in your car and back here. Just so I don't think I mean, we can talk about it at the parks, and that could be maybe maybe we do the schools this year and the parks next year to expand it, and we just redo the poster contest with kids. And
Oh, that's a good idea.
I thought I had Kate or whoever wants to take it over after. Was that maybe we have, I'm sure there's got to be a digital media class at the high school or something, and we work with the younger kids to design the posters, and then they trade off with a high school student. High school student designs it digitally, and then maybe that would be a little easier for printing.
True. Yeah,
I thought it popped in my
Yeah.
head.
yeah,
Potentially even working into one of the Aspire courses that are now part of the curriculum, because Capstone or Aspire is a mandatory requirement for graduation, starting with this graduating class year.
Mhm.
So students have more in-depth projects that are long. The Aspire projects are one semester. The Capstone projects are 2 semesters. But there might
Right.
even be a way, if someone's interested in environmental issues and, incorporating some type of environmental and graphic design. And I like that idea, Jared, of pairing up the high school with the elementary school. I my mind's now going into, after school activities, buddies, but
Okay, anything else on anti-idling?
so should I go back, then I can go back to Tara and just say, that Sam, you're going to be exploring kind of locations and how many are possible at the different locations, as opposed to them coming up with a number. I mean, it seems like it needs to be based on what makes sense.
I feel like we've come this far in this in this past year and a half of talking about this. We should probably go with what we know right now and start making the 8. And then exactly. You can reach out to Tara. I don't mind doing it, and go through DLC or Pathways or something to talk to the principals about the need for additional ones, because it won't be the same at every school anyway, and the principals will be the best knowledge about where they might be needed most.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So you're saying, Sam, just do the one of each at this point and we'll go from there?
Well, there's nothing stopping us from getting 5 more or 8 more or whatever it is next meeting or the
making
meeting after.
Okay. Yeah. Making multiples of the 8.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll explore like the price, where the price point goes, right?
Great, Kate, if I remember, there's something about having, the whole sheet of aluminum or something
Right.
was
Yeah.
like, if it's 1 sign, it's $80. If it's 6 signs, it's $80. It was like,
Right.
it was something weird like that, where you had to buy the
Yeah.
whole sheet,
It
so,
has to do with that
if-
sheet. Yeah.
right, and if they can give us a couple price options of, not saying, bulk is cheaper, but if it's the 8 is $45 and 12 is $55, I think that
Okay.
that's probably, whatever, you were the one that was working on it, that's all. And I'm, like I said, I just remember us talking about, have to buy like the whole sheet of aluminum or something.
Okay. Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, we're moving on to waste reduction. Garrett, simple update.
I don't have an update just because of the holidays and everything, but I will make sure that we get that for our next meeting. I know it's been, I think it was November was the last one.
Okay. Moving on to composting, has there been any more? I know
Yeah.
that from the minutes, there's been some stuff on Deep, and I know Kate,
Mhm.
the Westwoods update.
Yeah, so I got a hold of one of the owners of the Blue Earth Composting, and he's going to meet, well, we hope he's going to meet on the, let's see, I believe it's the 18th of this month over at the school with the different people from, the cafeteria to the cleaning crew, Tara, and discuss kind of ways forward. Evidently, they're excited about trialing this over there. So it looks like it might happen. I don't know when. So a lot of it is going to be based on how this meeting goes, but it is moving in the right direction.
Perfect. Questions for Kate?
Just want to remind you, I do have experience rolling out a cafeteria composting program. If at any point I can add my experience, let me know.
Oh, that'd be great. No, I didn't know that. Thanks, Stacy. You know what? Maybe I can send you, well, I don't know if you're going to be available, but I can send you, well, I'll tell Tara this, and then once they decide, maybe then if you want to step
Okay.
in and help, that'd be
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. Questions? All right, moving on to the littering signs that adopt the road. I don't know if we've made any headway on this.
I don't, I think, Tally was looking, sorry, I'm writing down while I'm speaking. I think Tally was looking into that. I'm trying to remember, I feel like I saw a town recently, that did one, but I might be misremembering. I forgot about that, so I'll look into that.
And you said Talia's not here, this or next meeting?
Correct, yeah, she let me know she'd be absent this month and next month.
Okay.
And she should be back in March.
Okay. All right, perfect.
Is this the right section to talk about when cleanup day is gonna be, or do I have to like make a motion to make the agenda different or something?
We can talk about other, because it slipped my mind when I was making the agenda for this month, and then I was talking, Kate had sent an email about it, and I was like, oh, I probably should have put that on the agenda for this month, so we'll just do it
Yeah.
another.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. That works. We'll throw it at number 3. All right, EV charger. I know, Garrett, you guys got to get more bids.
Yeah.
Did you guys, I know it wasn't in the minutes and I missed the meeting, but did you give a cost out, or did you talk about the actual cost that we got?
I
original
didn't.
one?
Yeah, I can share. So I think the original cost that I got was right around 30,000. But it's in that range where it doesn't have to be a bid, but I still need more than one option. And the problem is that there's not a lot of companies that are doing the whole service thing in the state right now. I was talking to the person I had been talking to, and they're trying to get me a revised bid of either using a lower charger to save some money and splitting it out, because it's a finance department thing of if we can do things out separately. I forget the term she used, but working with them, us doing some of the work and vice and so on, that it can bring down the cost and might remove the need for a bit getting the quotes. I even talked to the company, and it's Artist Energy, and I think there's one other company that's doing it that I'm working on getting a quote from. So trying to find that third company is the hard part. But I am working on it, and with the holidays and everything, it takes longer to get things.
Yeah, and let's talk offline for a minute, because is it an electrician thing, or is this the actual charger company thing that's pushing the pricing?
It's the cost of the location. So we determined that it'd be pretty. There'd be a lot more involved with pulling electricity from the Staples house. There's some it's an old building. There's electrical issues in there that need to be addressed, and all this other stuff. So what the proposal was that we're going to run a new 400 amp let me pull it up so I can.
Yeah, like a pedestal service. It's all
Right. So we'd run a new
right from the line.
Right, we'd run a new 400 amp service off of. Sorry, my computer's not cooperating. There we go. Okay. So we run a new service from this telephone pole, run up to a new circuit breaker box. It'd be a 400 amp service, so there'd be the opportunity to expand in the future. So it's one of those upfront costs for long term. So that's what just pushes the price up, and then the Eversource grant covers some of that. Half the charger cost is covered, but we have to cover the other half. And that's where it kind of bumps it up. So, if we buy the charger separately, that brings it down by a good chunk. And then us doing the excavation brings it down a chunk. It's not something that I had spoken to our electrician. He said it's not something that he would be able to do. Just the scale, the amount involved. So it'd be paying someone an electrician, and then Eversource has got to pull the line because it's the new service, all that stuff. That's what kind of drove up the cost, as opposed to just being able to pull it right off an existing building. But I do know that Sam is looking at putting some in at the high school. I know that's there's a few things up in the air right now about that. So there'll be something in town. It's just, where it is. And
yeah, you talk to me anyways. Well, after and let's let this week go by. But just because I do temporary services on when we start a new road or job sites, and they don't cost anywhere near. And I know there's some existing stuff's a little different.
Yeah.
Eversource typically is the higher price, is getting them to do their work, but
Right.
I also have obviously a lot of connections with different electricians if we have to explore that as well. So let's
Right.
talk a little bit and see what we can do.
Yeah, and that's a
And
separate
then-
option. It's just doing everything ourselves and splitting it out.
Yep. And then you mentioned the high school. I don't know if I was going to jump into it, but I know, Sam, you and I were at one of those, weekly update meetings, and it kind of, we had updated the committee of maybe 3 meetings back that there was going to be, multiple chargers at the new high school. But now there was something about, there was charger preps, but not chargers. Sam, did you hear any more on that? Because it was unclear the way it got relayed to us, because we were in the same 2 meetings.
Sorry, slow to the mute button. No, that it appears that that's the way the spec went out, was that it's prepping for those locations, but the actual charging stations are not included in the base price, unfortunately. So
That's that's unfortunate, because that's not the way it was relayed, or at least it wasn't specific and enough to give us any doubt when we first heard it. So, Garrett, we can also talk, because obviously at this point it's I don't want to rehash the high school budget at this meeting. I've done enough of that. But to, look at, because if they're prepping everything, it's not something that wouldn't be actually probably being installed for 18 months or so. But to maybe start setting a plan with this committee to look at those options, or whether it's another option through council, whatever, because if all the prep is there, then it's just to buy the charger. And then maybe there's something we could still work out with Eversource where we can maybe save by locking in, and I don't know the details, I'm just throwing it out there. But in light of that news, maybe we can look at something. And we had gotten, when we got into this, we were asking about specs and what was done. But it would be nice to basically have the same charger in the multiple
Right.
locations, not one type at the near the Staples house, and then have different types up at the high school in the future, et
Right.
cetera, et cetera.
And I know there was some issue with the networking for the charger that we were all originally looking at. So at least with the high school.
Yeah, well, when I had asked for the spec, is it a direct, are we running conduit for some kind of direct connection, or is it all wireless? And I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about, charging stations that need, Wi-Fi or some kind of communications. The ones we do are all, level 2 in garages that are direct connected.
Right.
And it's, there's no metering or charging involved other than the electrical usage. So
Right.
I know that through our owner's rep, they had sent over a spec of what something they had used, and it looked like that one could be connected either way when I looked at it.
Mhm.
But I know for the high school, they're asking the question, what does prep include? Does it include, because you can't put high power and low power in the same conduit. So
Right.
running conduits ahead of time is a big deal if we need to network and we can't do it.
Right.
So Sam, you and I will have to kind of bring that up. We have not tomorrow's meeting, but the next working group meeting we have, we'll have to look at that a little bit more closely. So, all right, thanks for the update. Any other questions on the EV chargers?
I have
Nope.
a question, why
Oh.
a quick question, just why the state didn't put charging stations in that park and ride?
I do not know.
I mean, that's a big
I mean,
question.
there's,
Brand
it
new
probably,
Park and ride.
yeah, it probably has something to do with the electrical service to the site. Because it's really just the ticket machines and some lights there. And probably just adding that. I mean, the state,
Does what the state does.
yeah, I hate to just always say that, but the state, it's not, we're gonna plow your road in 2 years. Do you want anything done in the meantime? It's, we're plowing your road next week. Prepare for traffic.
You're talking about the South Road one, Kate?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
right.
was probably in the works for years before it
Yeah.
actually got done, and that's typically how it gets lost.
It's such a shame. What an opportunity. Anyway.
Right, and I think the state is trying to push these alternative fuel corridors now.
Right. I would have.
That you would think, yeah, there or at UConn or something. I don't remember if they've done anything at UConn yet. I haven't seen anything.
Okay. All right, moving on to native lawns. I'm assuming you're still doing research.
Yeah, no update at this time, and that's gonna kind of be a slow, side project. So I'll probably take it off in the future, and then if we have an update, I'll add it back on.
Are you
Okay.
looking for someone to do a talk about it? Because Farmington River Watershed has a, they came a couple years ago and did a talk for us that we put on. Green Efforts.
I mean, we could do that as well. I mean, we could just have someone do a discussion about just a talk and do that as kind of an education goal for. I'm trying to remember what the next phase is, but as an education goal in the meantime, we've just been talking whether amending the property maintenance ordinance for the town to allow native lawns, or to add some clarification and criteria for having native lawns. So that, just to refresh everyone's memory, I had sent a letter for someone that hadn't mowed the grass over the summer. It was like over a foot tall. The regulation says weeds and grasses that are not ornamental must be kept below 1 foot. Or I don't remember the language off the top of my head, but this person had called me and said, well, I didn't know I was trying to establish a native lawn because they live on Birdseye. They're way off the road and they've got a very small backyard. They weren't going to use their front yard anyway to like kind of set them back from Birdseye. And I said, I'll mention it. We'll look into it and see if there's something we can do, or it's just coming up with some criteria of what's a native lawn versus you not mowing your lawn. Just kind of to make it easier. So if someone wants to do it, there's a mechanism.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No,
It's a good question. We haven't talked about it in a few.
yeah.
So. Okay. Thanks. All right, we're adding item number 3 under other cleanup day. So do we have a day picked out for this yet, or is this the start of that discussion?
Let me
That usually start with the hazmat day, or the, like, what day it's around April 22nd, which is Earth Day.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
and it's
usually-
usually based on the hazardous waste cleanup day, because that way the public works folks are already working. And I believe that date is scheduled in accordance with whatever the consortium is of towns.
Right.
right. Yeah, I'm looking at the town website now. I don't see anything. So I will check with our public works department and see if they have talked about a schedule yet. And I'm looking at the state and they don't have a date. I mean, it's January 3rd. So but I look at the state and they don't even have the dates for the state yet for 2023. So I will check, and I think it's usually late April, and last year it was April 23rd. So if we look at the calendar, April 23rd was the second to last Saturday.
Because it's tied in with Earth Day around the 22nd.
Right. Well, 22nd is a Saturday this year,
Yeah,
so that might be the day.
yeah, and depending on, I know in prior years, I mean, obviously it's the hazardous waste cleanup day, but I can't remember, a couple years ago, I think, Kate, maybe you remember, the cleanup was a little earlier, so we weren't fully leafed out yet. So it was easier to see the trash and pick up the trash.
Yeah. Until we started combining with the hazardous drop off, we could pick dates because, based on, the school calendar and all that kind of thing. And then now we're kind of locked in to wherever the hazardous waste ends up. So we can talk about this, but we actually just need to know, do we just get assigned that? Is that how it works, Garrett? Or do we have any say in that?
It's probably just assigned. I'm looking at the calendar right now, and I will say, so the 22nd is a Saturday, the 15th and the preceding weekend, which is the 15th, that is Farmington vacation, and the weekend before that is Easter weekend, which is also the start of the Farmington school vacation for April. So those 2 weekends are Farmington vacation. So I would assume that it'd probably be difficult to
Mm.
get people and things going that week. Those 2 weekends, then it's April 1st is the weekend before that.
which could be snowy.
Right. There's always the potential for that.
Little chilly.
So I know
So
that, I know that we've typically combined the 2 hazardous waste and Farmington pickup day.
Yeah.
Or the past few years, we connected them.
Mm.
But I will tell you that it's very difficult for a resident to participate in both activities. So when the person's standing up in line waiting to get rid of their old paint, they're not out picking up litter on the street. And vice versa, when they're out picking up litter, they don't have an opportunity to drop off hazardous waste. So I'm not sure it's wise to bring those 2 together, although I know that's certainly the history of it.
Mm.
I like combining everything as like the Earth Day celebration, and I feel like if people are going to drop off hazardous waste and they see that cleanup day is happening, it may increase the chances of them being aware or doing it the next year, or sending a spouse to do one of the jobs.
Yeah. We often divide and conquer.
And I think generally that cleanup day also coincides with the start of spring sports. So that might, if it's the following weekend and sports are in full swing, it might be harder to get families involved than if it's, right before sports start.
Yeah.
Because I know that happened with the last one. I think it was like opening day for soccer or something was the same day as the cleanup.
Spring sports for the high school start opening first day that games are allowed is April 2nd.
Right. And, high school versus
Right. Yeah.
Pee Wee football and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
The truth is, if you want to choose to do it, you can do it very easily. It's like 25 minutes of your time, and the game that your kid's going to be in is an hour. So like, if you want to do it, you can do it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being cynical, but.
No, you're being real, because that's exactly you see people walk past you at Tungus Mead, and it's like, really, you're not going to take a bag and pick up trash? I don't know. I've gotten very simple, but it's 20 years in the making.
Stacy, that reminds me. So someone reached out to Shannon recently for participating in cleanup. I think it was a Boy Scout troop. So you should get an email from her.
Okay, great.
And then hopefully this week. It's more of her waiting on the email from someone to send it out, but she wanted me to give you a heads up so that
if you find out the date before our next meeting, can you just shoot me an email?
Of course.
And then any movement on storing the stuff somewhere other than Kate's shed?
We were talking about that before the meeting started because Kate had reminded me of it. So I got to figure out how much stuff Kate has. She gave me an estimate, and then figuring out where we have room to store it. Depending on where the storage. I mean, I think we think Shannon and I prefer to have it at Town Hall because there's a garage building out back, and that way it's easy for us to get to. But the other location would be possibly Highway, and there's a benefit there because then maybe the guys can just throw it in their trucks when they're going out. So just kind of figure out how much there is, where there's room to store it, and then store it there. So we'll
1928 building, another use? No. Jeff?
Not yet. Not
Yeah.
yet.
I know.
I think that's a few years away.
I'm
So
teasing.
once we have that date, I think, I don't know if you guys have done a flyer in the past, even just a digital flyer that we could start getting it out, get it on the homepage.
Yes.
So it'd be nice to get the date and have something set up for the next meeting in February. But I think we can also start thinking about some of the raffle prizes that we were doing. And then some of the outreach. I know, some of the community, either businesses or, the community groups. I know the bicycle committee always gets involved, but start talking to these folks a lot earlier. Having that to send out or some kind of, communication, getting the word out right away. And then also for, even I would mention it at the council meeting. I'm sure you guys can mention the Board of Ed. And start, getting the word out. So getting that date is key right now, and then maybe a flyer to go with it. And then Stacy, are you looking to do that same sign up system as last time? I don't know if it was a sign up genie or what it was. I remember logging on and I just don't remember what it was anymore.
It was a sign up genius. I'll have to look at how many people actually signed up, but I think it worked.
I think at least for the commission, it was pretty good for
Hmm.
coverage.
And then are we looking to do the tag sale again at IAR? Like we did, I mean, there was some good feedback. I don't know with the work versus the benefit, and if we want to do that in the year, what are the thoughts of the committee?
I mean, I think it's a phenomenal idea. I think if we can do more press early on, and really shine a light on it, it makes sense to do it again. I don't know though, Stacy, you were the one handling that and I was handling the cleanup. So I don't know. You would have a better sense of that. I
It
guess.
wasn't a lot of work. I think that the low foot traffic was frustrating for the people selling, but I think that is related to it being the first year and related to just my non-marketing skills. But yeah, I think it's
It was, like you said, first year, and I think people, having it up a couple months earlier while people are still in the cold and not have already gone through their spring cleanups, or maybe would hold off, or maybe, like I said, a flyer and getting it on the website a little earlier. Talking about that, I think it's a good idea to give it another go and see if we can't grow it.
Yeah.
So, okay. Any other questions or comments on the cleanup day? Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you, everyone. And can we get a motion for adjournment?
motion.
I second it.
All right, any discussion? All right, thank you, guys. All
Thank you,
in
everyone.
favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.